victims of a failed, quote, state-sponsored, unquote, attempt to hack into their Apple iPhones. These individuals based their allegation on a notification that they claimed they had received from Apple. The union government had played down the allegations by citing a statement released by Apple that suggested that the company, and I quote, did not attribute the threat notifications to any specific state-sponsored attacker, unquote. But today the BJP, viewers, has decided to add a new dimension to this entire controversy, this raging row. It has claimed that Apple never sent the message to its customers. Instead, the BJP claims the message was sent by an NGO linked to George Soros, who is a multi-billionaire globally. To substantiate its claims, the BJP has shared an image of the alert received by MPs. In the image, the BJP has referred to a link in the notification that leads to a digital helpline called Access Now. I will show you, viewers, that image that has been released by the BJP, and it has that word Access Now mentioned on it in just a few seconds. It is this helpline, Access Now, which alerts Apple phone users to attempts to hack their handheld devices. The party claims that Access Now is an NGO funded by Modi critic George Soros. The party claims that Soros is committed to toppling Modi, which is why only opposition leaders got the alert. Now, this is all what the BJP is saying. These are big claims, viewers, and those claims are, of course, on your screens. The fundamental claim amongst all of these, viewers, is that Access Now is funded by George Soros, and that the follow-up mail by Apple mentions Soros-linked Access Now. Why would that be the case? Why would a helpline be funded by George Soros and a helpline therefore being tweeted by Apple? These are some fundamental questions the BJP is asking. Viewers, this is the first time the BJP has alluded to George Soros sparking some sort of disinformation campaign which has been amplified by the opposition to try and create disaffection against the Modi government. The link is made because Soros has not hidden his antipathy for Modi's brand of politics and has always maintained that India would be better off without him at the helm. Now I'm going to get you examples of when Soros took a position against Prime Minister Modi or the NDA government. The biggest and most frightening setback occurred in India. A democratically elected Narendra Modi creating a Hindu nationalist state. Punitive measures on Kashmir imposed a semi-autonomous Muslim region, threatening to deprive millions of Muslims of their citizenship. This is what Soros said after the CAA protests in 2020, when that bill, the CAB bill, became a legislation. Viewers, when the Hindenburg matter erupted, Soros was gleeful. He said, and I quote, "This will significantly weaken Modi's stranglehold on India's federal government. Modi will have to answer questions from foreign investors and in parliament. Open the door to push for much needed institutional reforms because he'll be under so much pressure. I may be naive, but I expect a democratic revival in India." This is what Soros said in 2023 on the Hindenburg saga. He says, I may be naive, but I expect a democratic revival in India. The BJP says its government is formed on the back of a majority mandate, and such obvious attempts at undermining the legitimacy of the BJP's second term in office is an attempt at insulting the Indian voter. That's what the BJP has been saying. India's NDA government is not the only one suspicious of Soros. Many other leaders around the world have also attacked Soros as they believe that he uses his financial muscle to affect regime change. Now let's go down the list, viewers, of when foreign governments when foreign governments have actually gone out there and criticized Soros. In 1992, many in the government in the UK, in England, said that he had broken the Bank of England and made profits of $1 billion by shorting the bank. In 1997, he was blamed for causing a financial crisis in 1997, and viewers, 3 years later, 2011, he allegedly funded organizations behind the Arab Spring movement. A large number of those countries and their leaders suggested this. In 2011, allegedly funded anti-Wall Street protests across the US. That is what a number of US politicians have been claiming. In 2016, he's accused of plotting against Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Russian government of Mr. Putin actually made that claim. In 2018, accused of being involved in 2013 Gezi Park protests in Turkey. All of this, of course, viewers, has been claimed by other foreign governments. The opposition has, of course, rubbished the BJP's attempt at drawing a Soros angle to the alerts. The BJP reminds the opposition that it made the same allegations against the NDA during the Pegasus affair. You remember that affair, viewers, where suddenly an international website and a consortium of journalists came out and claimed that Pegasus, an Israeli software, had been inserted by India's spy organizations and others who were close to the Modi government to spy on dissidents, including opposition politicians and journalists. The BJP reminds the opposition that in that case too, the Supreme Court called the opposition's bluff by absolving the NDA. Though it has to be said that the Supreme Court in that same judgment also said that the center did not cooperate with the expert panel set up to investigate whether Israeli spyware Pegasus was implanted to snoop upon Modi critics. At that time, the government had said that they would not like to confirm or deny whether they were purchasing Pegasus. Viewers, Pegasus is a potent weapon that is used by certain state governments, by certain governments around the world to blunt and anticipate terror attacks by underground groups by infiltrating them using this software. The Supreme Court had also hoped that three-member committee set up to look at means to protect the privacy of mobile phone users would meet and draw up implementable guidelines. For the record, the committee has not even met once since the Supreme Court's verdict. So there is, viewers, there is something that the government also needs to explain, and of course the authorities also need to explain. Nonetheless, here are some big questions. Is the digital helpline website Access Now officially connected to Apple? Fundamental question which we'll be posing in just a few moments. Is Access Now authorized by Apple to send messages notifying mobile users of the possibility of a phone hack? These are big questions. Why hasn't the Apple group come out and either refuted or confirmed what the BJP has been claiming over the last few days? Viewers, this is perhaps a fundamental question that is being asked, and it is at the heart also of protecting privacy. Let's raise the big questions, viewers. The big questions tonight brought to you by Motorola. The BJP alleges a massive twist in this entire scandal that has erupted. It says that Soros actually sent the messages, not Apple. And we're asking, is Soros then the rotten apple in this entire affair? Excuse the pun, viewers, but I want to open this up, and I want to begin first with the Bharatiya Janata Party's national spokesperson, Shahzad Poonawala. Mr. Poonawala, it's a massive claim to make. It's a massive claim to suggest that it was not Apple that actually sent these notifications, but it was, in fact, a Soros-funded NGO that did so. It changes the entire complexion of this story. How are you justifying this particular claim?
Rahul, usually cricket fans like us, we used to remember that first 5 days test match used to be played, then it was 1 day, now it has become T20. Similarly, Congress's allegations have come into the realm of becoming a T20. That means Rahul Gandhi did a press conference after breakfast, and before lunch, Apple came out with a clarification, and now they can't take two stands. Either you believe Apple and you believe its notification, or you don't believe Apple, then you don't believe its clarification. You can't have it both ways. Apple clarified that there was no specific state sponsor, and you would know, Rahul, that these people who are compulsive critics were immediately blaming Modi government, including Pawan Kheda and others. Now I have a question. Isn't Apple having a long-standing feud with FBI? Isn't the Chinese also very happy to target American companies like Apple? But why was India targeted immediately just because you have Modi hatred? Secondly, even though it was said that state specific is not there and the state sponsorship could mean many other things, and that these alarms sometimes could be false alarms, fake alarms, despite all these clarifications and the fact that it went to 150 countries, people in 150 countries, the Congress continued with its allegations. And this is the same Congress which during the Pegasus saga did not give the phone of Rahul Gandhi. Priyanka Vadra had said that my children's Instagram account is hacked. CERT kept asking her for details. She did not give it. So anyways, the link that now emerges after some people have done research is that Access Now, which has been said to be the tech support of Apple as per that message, has not only got one link with Soros. Let me make another disclosure. One of the other funders of this Access Now, if you see the page 2 of the funding sheet of Access Now, is a organization called Omidyar. And Omidyar in India, and I'm refraining from taking the name, I will leave it to your journalists to go and find out more. Omidyar in India is run by a person who's extremely close to the Congress's media department head. And therefore today there's not one link, Rahul. I am in fact giving you an update that there are two links which make it very clear that despite Apple coming out with the clarification, Congress continued to back this kind of half-baked allegations that it was making. Now here is the point. The Congress party has no locus standi to even speak on this, given its own track record. It wanted to bring the post office bill, you remember, which was given a pocket veto by Gyani Zail Singh. It bugged Mr. Pranab Mukherjee's room. It was behind the bugging of 9,000 emails and 500 phones on a monthly basis. This was said in an RTI. On the other hand, who else is making this allegation? Mahua Moitra, who herself parceled her login password and security to a person living in foreign soil, having a direct conflict of interest against the person whom she was asking questions. The third entity making these claims is Sitaram Yechury. Now Sitaram Yechury's love for fighting American imperialism stopped short because he was using an Apple phone to fight American imperialism. But on a more serious note, we know the links between the left parties and how they are very soft towards agendas of other countries, particularly China. So all of this seems to be a larger conspiracy to tarnish India, and I'll just sum up by saying one thing. 150 country users were targeted. Did you hear from any of the 149 countries that they immediately blamed their government? An Armenian journalist was also targeted, apparently, by this threat notification. Did he say that my government is responsible? Why was this such a hastiness being shown? It is because it has a George Soros link, and whenever George Soros is involved, you remember the Adani affair, you have quoted the statement. George Soros' statement of demanding intervention into India's affairs was celebrated by Praveen Chakravarti, who is a key aide of Rahul Gandhi. Okay. Rahul Gandhi was seen walking with Salil Shetty of the Open Foundation in Bharat Jodo Yatra. In America, he had an undisclosed meeting with Sunita Vishwanath. The pictures came out later. Sunita Vishwanath is also the one, I hope I'm not spelling the name wrong. She is the one who has a funding from George Soros. So these are the linkages that on the ishara of George Soros, all of these things are done time and again, whether it's the Adani saga, whether it is this, or whether it is many other agendas that are taken up to target India. And therefore, this is not a Sayog, this is a Socha Samjha.
Okay,
Prayog
so let me ask
Udyog.
you one follow-up question, Mr. Poonawalla, Shadat Poonawalla, that is. It's a very specific question.
Yes.
If this link is so apparent and it came out in the follow-up notification that Apple issued, why does the BJP have to pick up the work of some random person on Twitter rather than having pointed it out yesterday? Why hasn't the government pointed this out yesterday? Because in the statement of Mr. Vaishnav, I did not see any references to such as this. Could you please explain?
That's because Mr. Shivshankar, when Mr. Vaishnav makes a statement, since he's a minister in the government of India, A minister's job is to not interfere in any kind of investigation process or to prejudice it in any way, even though he may have many more information than any of us sitting here. And therefore, like a good minister would do as an objective person, he said that we have got the reply of Apple. It is not specific, it is vague. We are calling for an investigation and inquiry. We take this matter very seriously, and he left it at that. But today, Amit Malviya, the BJP is entirely at its right to point out these linkages which have been put out by researchers. And by the way, there are two entities
but why
that
researchers?
have to clarify now. One,
No,
Apple,
one second.
that
I just want to get narrow focus on this, because yesterday he did make some political statements, Mr. Vaishnav. I do realize that he is a minister, but he did make a political statement. He did say that, oh, you know, these are these usual suspects, this, that, the other. What do you expect? They're habitual. Yes. They're habituated. I mean, that is also prejudging the issue.
No. Talking about Congress's charitra, which is of being a compulsive critic, is stating a fact. But as far as the investigation into this affair is concerned, on that the minister rightly has said that we have asked for an investigation to be done. It will be done, the results will be out. But why shouldn't we rely on somebody who has done the research, gone into it and seen? Now two people should clarify if the research is wrong. A, Access Now should, Apple should clarify whether Access Now is their tech support or not. And B, Rahul Gandhi should tell us that was it at the prompting of George Soros that despite Apple's clarification,
why shouldn't Apple be summoned?
Is very important.
Why shouldn't Apple be summoned before the committee, parliamentary panel? As of now, there was a news break that came out. There was a news break that came out on ANI viewers. Let me just draw your attention to it. And that news break suggested that people from Apple were going to be summoned by the panel, but then when we spoke to the head of the panel, when CNN News 18 spoke to the head of the panel, they said no such step has been taken. I find that very odd, viewers. Not that I'm trying to suggest that one side is lying
Rahul,
or misrepresenting. But one would expect Apple to clarify if they actually have outsourced this very important work to this group called Access Now. Yes. Yes, Mr. Punal. Shahzad Punal. Yes.
Rahul, since I was on another channel and I have not seen that specific news break, I can just tell you that when a committee starts its work, it is not going to give running commentary as to whom it will summon or it will not summon. At the time when it calls somebody to give an answer before it, that will be in the public domain. But to prejudge and to start telling who will be summoned, not summoned, I think that will constrict the work of the committee. So it should be allowed to do its job as per its legal mandate.
Viewers, you would appreciate my asking follow-up questions to Mr. Shahzad Poonawalla, because I want this matter, the entire context of this matter to be presented. Now let's ask the other side some basic questions. And I want to begin first with Tehseen Poonawalla as well as Professor M. Mondol. And there's of course Senior Fellow of the ORF with us, Sushant Sareen. I want to first begin with Sushant Sareen because he happens to be the only neutral authority here on national security. And then I will bring in the other side. Now, Sushant Sareen, look, at the end of the day, this is an independent researcher who has pulled out this link. You can see it now on your screens, viewers. Enlist expert help such as the rapid response emergency security assistance provided by the digital security helpline at non-profit Access Now. Why would Apple point you in the direction of this helpline?
So, Rahul, let me first register my deep disappointment that none of the 5 people in this program's names have come in this particular list. I feel kind of left out, and I feel, you know, I'm not important. I don't know. It's a huge blow on everybody's ego. And I really wanted my name to come out on one of these lists so that even I could boast in Delhi society circles that I'm being tapped. But obviously, Shehzad's government does not think we are worth anything. But on the most substantive note, look, here is the thing. Number one, Rahul, companies do farm this kind of work out to other specialized agencies, and maybe this Access Now.org is one of such agencies, and there are these arrangements which many of these tech companies have with other such firms or other companies because they can't do everything on their own. And then there are certain issues that, you know, they need to give it out to somebody who's maybe has the technical expertise, or so that there is a greater degree of transparency in what is happening. So that is possible, but the antecedents of access now suddenly make this organization look rather dubious. And then, of course, Apple too has a bit of a reputation for being a little woke as a company. They will want you to not get chargers because they want to save the planet, but then they will charge you thousands of rupees for a charger. I don't know how much sense that makes, but that's their business model. But wokeness is very much part of their business model, and that wokeness fits in very well with the Soros gang. But look, let's come down to the substantive issue. What is everybody complaining about? Just looking at the text of that letter which has been issued, or the clarification, they are saying, look, we don't know who did it. We think it's a state-sponsored group, but we don't know who it is. We can't tell you who it is. We are not even sure if it has happened or not happened, and this might be a false alarm, right? And then they say that whatever we are telling you is probably incomplete and imperfect. And then people are going ballistic over it. So either you give specific information that, look, such and such state or state agency or an agency affiliated to such and such state is trying to enter people's phone, and this kind of entry for which this message went is what you would call a hammer kind of an approach. Most security agencies, most eavesdroppers do it silently without anybody even getting to know about it. Pegasus, for example. Now, again, I think there is a need for some oversight, because if these kind of eavesdropping exercises are used against political opponents, I think it leaves a bad taste in the mouth. It should not happen. But if these kind of eavesdropping exercises are done against people who pose a threat to the state, people who pose a threat to the security of the country, I am all for it. Again, with all the proper oversights. But look, to expect somebody like a Priyanka Chaturvedi to be a national security threat, come on, give me a break. She might be a political opponent of Shehzad, but she's not a national security threat. And I don't even think that she's going to be part of any major, political conspiracy which is being hashed. Give me a break on that as well. So, some of the names which have come out again make you wonder why these people would even be tapped. So something is not adding up as far as this story is concerned, and I think it's good that if somebody inquires into where this information has come from,
right,
and then if it's happening in 150 countries, then was it some kind of a trial balloon which was floated,
let me ask,
some other exercise which these guys were doing?
There are some valid points I think Sushant Sareen has made. One, of course, being that if the government already has such a potent tool like Pegasus, why does it have to actually bumble around in the dark and try to infiltrate in this sort of allegedly ham-handed manner into iPhones and then sort of get exposed? That also doesn't make sense, viewers. Either you have the technology or you don't have the technology. But nonetheless, Tehseen Poonawalla, let me bring you in, since we need to actually get the other side in, and I'll give you all the time to make your point. I want to ask you, has there been a deliberate attempt to fuel a narrative? And let me tell you what Amit Malviya is saying. Amit Malviya, who Shehzad Poonawalla has quoted, has said that Access Now website links Omidyar as a donor. And Amit Malviya claims that Varad Pandey, who leads Omidyar's initiative in India, was a special advisor to Jairam Ramesh. Jairam Ramesh is Rahul Gandhi's left hand and also the head of the entire Congress communication cell. So, by extension, the BJP is claiming that this is a Congress-sponsored, forget even about Soros, it's a Congress-sponsored, let alone a state-sponsored, a Congress-sponsored defamatory exercise against the NDA to discredit it and to spread panic. Your response on these charges?
Good evening, Rahul. Finally, you come to me. Thank you very much, and I will answer all those charges. If the entire government of India's collective brains were a dynamite it wouldn't be enough to blow the lid of the hat of your head. That's how ridiculous this idea is. It's like a machine gun spraying all over, but onto the target that has to be hit. Now let's expose them, because this is what I fundamentally like to do. First of all, the very argument falls flat, because if it is state sponsored, whether it's Mr. Soros, whether it's Jairam Ramesh, or whether it's Mr. Pandey, neither of them have the resources or the technology to buy it. For example, let's go back to Pegasus. Pegasus can only be sold to states. They cannot be sold to individuals. It's not possible. Therefore, the fundamental question that you began by asking, and Sushantji asked, does India, the Indian government, have Pegasus? Yes or no? The government refused to come clean in the Supreme Court. Point number two, has since then the government of India tried to buy spyware worth $16 billion going up to $120 billion? Yes or no? They are not ready to answer all of that. Now the 150 countries, so either Jairam Ramesh and Mr. Pandey are so powerful that they can affect 150 countries, which was a defense yesterday of the BJP, or they are out to spoil the NDA. You can be pregnant or not pregnant. You can't have it both ways. So the 150 argument, let's now expose that. Access Now and Citizen Lab confirmed traces of spyware attack on Apple devices, because yes, like other labs, they are partnering with Apple. This is to do with the Russian attacks by the Russian state-sponsored attack on their journalists. That is the report that is being quoted. However, this 150 countries, 149 other countries, is to do with Pegasus. You will recall, and Sushantji will recall, both Apple and WhatsApp have testified in US courts with regards to Ugandan governments and other governments using Pegasus. Now, this is to do with that. But this is a bizarre argument of 149 countries. What Uganda does, or what Pakistan does, or what any other country does, what have I got to do? Just because something happens in Uganda is justified in my country? What they don't answer is a very specific question that the Honorable Supreme Court asked, you asked, and Sushant asked. Do you have spyware? Yes or no? Are you in the market looking for spyware? We don't want to know which. We don't want to know how. Do you have spyware? Because you're not buying it from your personal money. You're buying it from Rahul, Sushant, Mr. Mondal, and my money. Answer those questions that they don't want to answer.
Okay, but 1 second, Mr. Tehseen Poonawalla, follow-up question. Yes, Shahzad Poonawalla, 1 second, I'll just bring you in. Just one quick follow-up question with Tehseen Poonawalla. Tehseen Poonawalla, look, I asked you not about Pegasus. I asked you about this particular incident that is being reported. Forget about Pegasus for a moment. Let's forget about that chapter. I want to ask you specifically about this. If Apple does outsource this entire helpline to a website or to a portal or to a link or to an NGO funded by George Soros, can we then legitimately accept the charges that are being made by the opposition politicians when George Soros himself is committed to the overthrow of Modi? He wants him out. He said it.
Great question. Don't believe it. First of all, Access Now report is not just Access Now, it's even Citizen Lab. That he didn't quote you very conveniently. He forgot to quote you. Access Now and Citizen Lab report has not to do with India, it's got to do with Russian attack. However, I take your point. Don't believe Access Now, don't believe Citizen Lab, don't believe any of them. All the government had to do was to cooperate with the Supreme Court that had set up a technical committee. They refused to do so. Why did they refuse to do it? Again, whether Pegasus or any other spyware. Now, what is Apple alerting you? To a state-sponsored attack. It could be by any spyware. It could be Pegasus, could not be Pegasus.
But
just
Apple
hold on.
is
This is very
also
important for your viewers. Sir, 1 second. It's very important for your viewers too. The state-sponsored attack could be Pegasus, could be some other malware or other military-graded hardware. The question is, does the government of India have any such thing? Could be Pegasus, could be for lack of another name, something else.
Just quick pointing out
that's the question.
That the Apple has also come out and said we cannot attribute the threat notifications to any specific state-sponsored attacker.
Correct.
So it is actually come out and 1 second.
The government further.
Okay, 1 second, sir. No, 1 second.
Rahul, now let me please come in.
1 second.
Rahul, let me
quick
please
response
come
from Shahzad Poonawalla, and then I want to bring in Monojit Mondal.
Yes. Now, Rahul,
1 second,
because
1
I heard
second.
Tehseen out, and I hope Tehseen won't interrupt me, which he's used to doing. Tehseen, now wait
I
here.
hope you keep your volume
You know,
low,
if
and
the
we can talk
Congress party and
politely.
Rahul Gandhi's...
Okay, please.
Stop it,
Shahzad
Rahul.
Poonawalla, you want to
If
respond?
Rahul Gandhi and Congress's collective wisdom was a windmill, it would not be able to move a straw. I'll tell you why. Tehseen Poonawalla just said that is Varat Pandey and Omidyar so powerful that 150 nations, the phones could be hacked by them or they could give out such notifications. Then Tehseen Poonawalla, Pawan Kheda yesterday, without waiting for Apple clarification, said that Modi Sarkar ye kyun karwa rahi ho? So is this not attributing motives to Bharat and Modi Sarkar without waiting? And when Apple's clarification has come, by the way, Apple even said in its clarification, this could very well be a false alarm. We don't even know what triggers this, because if we were to know this, then it would be difficult for the people who are doing these attacks. It will be easy for those people to doing these attacks to figure out a way to bypass those attacks. But having said that, let me make two very important points. Tehseen Poonawalla keeps saying cooperation with the Supreme Court. Manevar, the Supreme Court's committee kept asking for Rahul Gandhi's phone. Why didn't you cooperate? Chalo, we did not cooperate as per you. Why didn't you cooperate? Are you going to cooperate and give the phone to the police and register an FIR now? Is Rahul Gandhi or Akhilesh Yadav going to UP police? And finally, Tehseen, I always believe that you are inclined to the Congress. Till there I could understand. But today I am beginning to feel that I am glad that this relationship is over, because you have asked for an anti-national act to be done. He wants us to disclose on live television what China and Pakistan want to know, that whether an agency is using a particular spyware. This man is batting for China. China would definitely love to know that what spyware our agencies are. 1 second, do not interrupt me. Do not interrupt me. Rahul, let me complete. Rahul, let me complete. Ask Sushant Sareen. Should this be a matter of public disclosure? I can understand that you tell it in a certain forum, in a certain way, and that too you cannot disclose what software is being used.
Okay.
But this Tehseen Poonawalla and Congress want that the Chinese should know if at all agencies are using a particular way to counter terrorists.
Okay.
This is their real agenda.
I think that's well, even the Supreme Court recognizes that
Exactly.
that question is not a legitimate one. Let's be honest, that's why it asks for all the responses in a confidential fashion. It came in an enclosed, closed, sealed envelope, and they only read out one part of that particular order. Nonetheless, let's open this up. Let me bring in Professor Mondal.
He made a personal charge against me about being anti-national, which I take strong objection to.
Okay,
and I'll tell you.
Yeah, let me bring in Professor Mondal. Professor Mondal, 1 second. Is he there? Hello? Okay, we just lost Professor Mondal. Yes, make your point.
30 seconds?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
You see, I don't want to go too much into personal stuff, but when you keep calling people anti-national, it actually puts our lives in threat, because this has happened to us. So please, can we have a civil discourse? When you have nothing of concrete to step, you just come and say you are against the country. So please stop this on national TV. Now let's answer two questions. The Honorable Supreme Court also asked this question.
You can
The
go and
Honorable
demand
intervention
into
into
India's
Okay, I don't want to
democracy.
get into this personal. 1 second, let's
Rahul, I
open
never
this up. I just want to bring in 1
My
second.
point of
Sushant Sareen, the
My
question
point
that
of
was posed is, no, please, let's not get into this personal squabble.
But he made one. Can I please make
You
my point?
responded
I just want to
now.
make one point. Just 1 point. No, I want to make a technical point. Forget this. Forget the nonsense that the BJP spokesperson talked. Just 1 point. The fact that Apple said that they cannot confirm which state sponsor it is even more reason for us to be alarmed. Let's take what the BJP spokesperson is saying, that this is not
They
state
can't
sponsored by
confirm
the
it
Indian
was
government.
if it was a
Sir, I
genuine
request
alert
you, will you
also.
please-
They
Sir, can I
can't
request
confirm
you-
if it was a
will you
genuine
please stop
attack
shouting?
also.
Okay,
They said
gentlemen,
that.
gentlemen,
Not the
please,
Republic of
gentlemen,
Turkey.
please.
Why are you
My
half
chance, I
quoting
never
them?
interrupted him.
Quote them fully.
Okay, 1
Please
second,
have-
1 second. Shahzad Punawalla, let's listen into his second question.
Please,
You
I would
can
have
respond.
finished by now.
Yeah,
I would
okay,
have
come
finished
on.
by now.
Finish.
Why is he
Thank you, sir.
manipulating?
Gentlemen, please. Yeah, Tehseen Poonawalla, very quickly.
Let's very quickly, just one line. Let's assume this is not done by the Indian state. Let's assume by the Indian government, by the Modi government. That should make it even more alarming that a foreign state is doing this. Imagine snooping on your opposition leaders in Pegasus
Then
on
why
your
is
judges.
Pawan
Well,
On
that is
Ashwini
why
Ji
a
Sarkar.
probe
Ashwini
has
Ji.
been set up.
On
That
Ashwini
is
Ji.
why a probe has
Will
been
the
set
government-
up.
will the government
Because the
cooperate?
government is concerned precisely on this account. That's why a
Ashwini
probe
Ji,
has been...
in
1 second,
Pegasus,
1 second.
Ashwini Ji
Tehseen
was-
Poonawalla, let's not be
was hacked.
blind to the facts. There is a probe that has been set up. We are being told that Apple will be summoned to answer, and it will be morally incumbent upon them to explain what they alert everyone with. Now, whether it is Omidyar backing this particular group or that group or the Congress party or Soros or whatever, we'll find out later. But 1 second, viewers, there are three basic things that have happened. The government has come out and quite responsibly said that we are very concerned by these reports, because naturally, viewers, democracy needs to be safeguarded from any attempt at undermining by snooping, etc., etc. Espionage is the worst thing, as we all know. So the government has taken this very seriously. It has asked Apple, it has set up a investigative panel. All these questions, in fact, Karti Chidambaram has even gone and said Apple should be summoned. The government might even consider that. Sushant Sareen, I just want to quickly ask you, should the government be in the business of disclosing publicly what spyware it is using?
Look, I don't think the government will ever disclose publicly what spyware it's using, and it shouldn't. But of course, in the Pegasus case, the revelations that the government of India had allegedly bought this software and was using this software was released in the public domain by some newspaper reports. And that is how, all hell broke loose out here. And then, certain alerts were given and people were told that maybe your phones are being tapped. And in many cases, nothing actually emerged. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the technical committee that had been set up gave the government a clean chit. But the point is that the government will use a variety of tools. All governments do it. Look, it's not just the Modi government.
Sure.
All governments, if they are serious about national security, they will be doing electronic eavesdropping. Ideally, they should be doing it against people who are a security threat, people who are a national security threat, people who might be carrying out, intelligence operations inside India or terrorist acts inside India or planning such acts. Ideally, it should not be happening against political opponents. Unless, of course, some of the political players are seen to be hand in glove with certain foreign powers. And I certainly will disagree with Shehzad on this. I don't think Tehseen is involved in any kind of anti-national activity, certainly not. But yeah, he has a party position to take and he's probably taking that position and he's making a debating point.
Okay. Well,
both are my friends, but I think Shehzad was a little out of line on this.
Okay. Shehzad Poonawalla, very quickly, and I want to wrap this up. Yes.
Look, Rahul, just like wisdom dawns on Mr. Sushant Sareen that these things are to be kept in the domain of confidentiality, Tehseen Poonawalla can have only one of two reasons why he wants to know. Either he wants to benefit an enemy territory in this hatred for Modi, or perhaps he should also disclose what his links are, because in the Pegasus issue, OCCRP report on Adani, and in this Apple fracas, this entire common link is only one: George Soros.
Okay.
Now, I don't know who all George Soros has reached.
The foreign hand.
The foreign hand. The link is.
Okay, the foreign hand, and quite a weazened foreign hand of a nonagenarian George Soros has appeared in this particular story. Now, is George Soros, has he tipped off all these opposition leaders? Is this all cooked up? Is this just another one of those fake news propaganda attempts to try and once again create disaffection against the Modi government? We can't say right now. We can only say that yes, in this Apple notification, there is a reference to a George Soros funded NGO, and that yes, indeed, those notifications did come from this particular source. At least that's what the open source data on a plain evaluation of the notification seems to suggest. Is this the truth? Has the truth been grafted in order to create a chimera? We won't know. We are hoping, viewers, for more clarity on this. But if this issue is so serious, one expects the opposition to go to the police, file complaints, move the courts, and let's take this matter in a direction where the government will be obliged to respond, not just through a panel of parliament. I'll take a short break. Lots more coming up, viewers. A large number of solidarity marches are taking place for Gazans. There are also increased attacks on Jews. Are all these a pretext for a pogrom? That's the fundamental question being posed. I'm coming right back to that. Don't go away.
Hello, Moto.
Traffic this area cater to, and in fact not only traffic, but you can see the bus adda is also here at this very point. So there is a heavy vehicular movement of big vehicles, though an imposition has come into place where diesel buses from the adjoining states are not being allowed to enter to the national capital. Only electric, CNG and BS6 compliance diesel vehicles or buses will be allowed here in the national capital. In fact, there is a visual also coming in here how water guns and smoke guns are being continuously used to actually make a temporary solution of this entire situation. Though at this very pocket, in this very area, the AQI remains in the very poor category. In fact, it is going beyond that at some point in time. Yesterday was the day when 500 mark was breached here at Anand Vihar. In fact, Supreme Court is also taking up this issue of worsening air quality here in the national capital, where the Supreme Court has asked the 5 states, including national capital Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Haryana and Punjab, to file an affidavit as to what measures they are taking to combat this current situation of worsening air quality here in the national capital. Well, the people of the national capital woke up to a hazy morning for the straight 5th day. Well, the air quality was already deteriorating, but now things have gone from bad to worse. In fact, today's AQI is, as when we are recording this very report, is somewhere around 336 levels, which is in the very poor category. I'm coming to you from the Kartavya Path area. On this side, you can see how bad the situation is here in the national capital. The smog has completely shrouded this area, and India Gate from this very point is barely visible. So this is a visual evidence of how the bad situation has turned here in the national capital. On the other side of the road as well, you can see the visibility has dipped a lot. Well, now this entire matter is panning out to be worse than the last 2 to 3 years, and this is what the officials had maintained, that October was worst in the last couple of years. Now, in some pockets yesterday, the AQI in fact had reached over the 500 mark, including the Anand Vihar area, and in fact some areas including Jahangirpuri also reported AQI levels over 400 to 500. So this is a worrisome situation now. In fact, authorities have also kicked in to actually curb this situation. As of now, various measures have been implemented. The latest which has been implemented as of now by the government is that no diesel vehicles will be allowed, or diesel buses will be allowed from the adjoining state in the national capital. If the buses are electric, if the buses are CNG, or if the buses are compliant with the BS6 norms of the diesel vehicles, then only those buses will be allowed. In fact, other measures are also in place, but as of now, the situation looks very bad here in the national capital. With national capital reeling under heavy smog, there are certain pockets which are reporting AQI in the worrying category of 400 to 500. In fact, I'm coming to you from the Anand Vihar area right now, which continues to be worst affected here in the national capital. In fact, yesterday only, this particular area reported an AQI level of over 500. Right now also the AQI continues to hover somewhere around.
Viewers, ever since Israel invoked its right to respond to the terror attack it has endured on October 7th, the country is subject to a backlash. There has been a worrying spike in Israelophobia around the world. Many Jews around the world are being villainized, and so are Israelis around the world who have nothing to do really with the situation that is obviously, viewers, and unfortunately playing out in Israel. The latest chilling example of this Israelophobia or Judeophobia came from a neighborhood in southern Paris over the last 24 hours, where the Star of David was stamped outside Jewish-owned homes to mark them out. The images brought back memories of the Holocaust of World War II. In Germany, if you all remember, viewers, Jews were forced to wear armbands sporting the Star of David as a symbol of their pariah status. Those pictures from the middle of your screens should worry us all. In Russia, a mob of Dagestanis descended upon an airport to lynch Jews when a flight from Tel Aviv landed at the airport. Several of them have been detained and arrested. Several of the people who were part of the lynch mob, and viewers, a number of those passengers are critically wounded. This is an inflection point. And to discuss this, we have with us a panel of very, very qualified experts. Dan Illouz, member of the Israeli Knesset, Charlotte Littlewood, head of the UK-India desk at the ICFS, and Muhammad Najib, a Palestinian journalist and defense analyst. I want to first begin with you, Mr. Illouz. Many people are saying that, look, at the end of the day, all of these are spontaneous marches, protests, etc., because there is palpable anger against Israel, the people there, because Israel has been complicit in undermining any effort at striving towards a long-term solution. It has ghettoized Gazans, and today is, well, in the name of retaliation, self-defense, is carrying out a pogrom of such. How do you respond to these charges?
First of all, I think that these charges is completely ridiculous, but we also have to remember how this all started. This started with one of the most violent massacres that humanity has known, that was done by Hamas, a terrorist group that comes out of Gaza and that rules on all of Gaza. And this massacre was horrible, not only because of the number of people that got killed in that massacre, 1,400 people, but also because of the horrors that were done on that day. I'm talking about burning babies alive. Babies. Who burns babies alive? Those are evil people. Raping women while their husbands are watching, and then killing the husband and flaunting the women around. Abducting elderly without their medication. Those are horrors that show how evil the Hamas regime is. And there are times in history where humanity needs to be very clear. We don't need some political correctness and try to find the middle ground between two sides. We need to be very clear. There's good and there's evil. What Hamas did showed that Hamas is evil, just like the Nazis were evil in Second World War, just like ISIS is evil. The Hamas regime is evil. And Israel on the other side is a liberal democracy. It's not perfect. You can criticize a lot of things that Israel does, and that's okay. But Israel is a liberal democracy that is right now defending itself. It's trying to do everything it can in order to minimize civilian casualties on both sides, including warning Gaza residents and telling them to go south when it wants to attack the north. And it does everything it can in order to minimize civilian casualties, including targeting only military targets that Hamas uses. And any attempt to find a middle ground is just trying to equalize between both sides, and that's basically taking Hamas's side, because if you would have tried to yes.
Okay, so you're saying a false equivalence is being drawn, and that means that you're taking Hamas's side. Okay, let me just bring in Charlotte Littlewood here. Charlotte Littlewood, what do you make of these attacks on the Jewish people, and of course on Israelis specifically, and the nation of Israel?
So we're seeing an unprecedented spike in anti-Semitism across the globe. Our Community Security Trust in the UK has measured the highest number of anti-Semitic instances on record for last month. And that includes 35 assaults, 44 cases of vandalism, and 75 direct threats. However, I do have to disagree with the previous speaker. To try and find a middle ground is absolutely not to support Hamas. You can be absolutely assured that Hamas's ideology is evil, it's genocidal, and it will never allow peace in the region. Yet you can still be pro-solution. And this is where the problem lies, in trying to push people into one tribe or another. And the very word pro is a problem too. So to say pro-Palestine makes the marches in themselves tribal. Where is a pro-solution space? Where is a pro-future in which both Israel and Palestine can exist side by side? That is what I hope for, and that's something that I am not seeing in a discussion that I fear is not being had. And one of the fears I have is that it's not being had because people are then being seen as anti-Israel for trying to talk about a future solution. We can absolutely hold that we have seen a Holocaust now in our age. It is one of the most tragic things I have seen in my lifetime. However, we can use that energy, that deep pain, sorrow, and anger to push forward and try and find a solution, that should not be besmirched. That would be a great undoing.
Okay, well, we need to draw a distinction, but certainly the protests, Mr. Najib, many people will see them as not an attempt to find actually a solution, but to channel hate against Israel, which will become actually part of the problem, the long-term problem, because then you reduce this to a cycle of continuous violence and invective. How do we break out of that?
Yes, first of all, I want to regret the attacking, the injuring, the murder of any Israeli civilians in Gaza or by the rockets that fallen on Israel in Tel Aviv, or any Israeli or Jews or civilians around the world who were attacked during the past few weeks. Actually, I have many Israeli friends in Israel who believe in the right of the Palestinians, believe in political solution, not violent solution. And I want to assure that Hamas doesn't represent the Palestinians. Hamas is a group that has its ideology. Israel knows Hamas much better than anybody else, and they have experience with that. So many Palestinians don't support what Hamas did and doing against the Israeli civilians, neither here nor abroad. And the conflict is political conflict. It's not religious conflict. And turning that into religious conflict is a problem. Actually, I'm sorry also that the Israelis around the world or the Jews around the world base the price of the Israeli right-wing government policy that denies the right of the Palestinian political rights. But that's always and only could be solved on the table of negotiation, not through violence at all. So I don't think, but as the whole world through the media sees that Israel disconnect the internet and closing the borders of Gaza and many casualties among civilians in Gaza. So Hamas is a non-state group. Israel is a state that applies with international laws, with humanitarian laws, with the war laws. So that's targeting the civilians or have this high number of casualties among the civilians. For sure, it caused the blame for Israeli armed forces policy because the Palestinians, the Arabs, the Muslims, the Americans, the Europeans, everyone see it's like a kind of revenge from the civilians, not Hamas. I didn't see anyone said Israel can go. There are 30,000 Hamas militants in Gaza Strip, but there are another 2.3 million civilians. So to go after the 30,000 doesn't mean to kill or displace the 2 million. And that's the issue that anger the people. But I assure you, it's a political conflict, not a religious conflict. And I regret the attacking of any Israeli civilians in Israel or in Gaza, borders that envelop Gaza or around the world, because this is not their problem. And there are many Israelis who support the right of Palestinians and looking for a political solution, and we shouldn't allow that to happen.
So let me very quickly bring this down. Is this actually a problem that can be resolved politically, or is it something deeper? Let me bring in Dan Illouz on this. Is it something deeper, Dan Illouz?
I want to make it clear, the war right now is not between the Palestinian people and Israel. It's between Hamas and Israel. And yes, there are a lot of civilians, Palestinian civilians, that are in the middle there. But we also have to be very clear that Israel cares more about those civilians than Hamas actually does. Israel tries to target its strikes only at Hamas infrastructure. We do everything in order to, again, to warn Palestinian civilians in order to get out of areas where we're about to launch an attack, in order to try and save civilians. If you contrast this with what Hamas doesn't only target Israeli civilians, and it does. We have to know that every single rocket thrown at it as Israel targets civilians, and that the massacre was against civilians, but they also don't care about their own civilians. They use them as defensive shields. They use them as human shields. They try to put them in harm's way. They even throw rockets at Israel that end up not getting to Israel, and they fall on their own people, including a hospital. And instead of saying sorry to their own people... We're talking on a day when there has
been a horrible attack on a refugee camp in the middle of Gaza. So, unfortunately, we can't ignore that. We can't ignore that.
This attack, again, we have to be very clear about it. This attack was against a military target, and under that military target, there were terror tunnels
I understand
that are
all
being
of that.
used.
Let me bring in Charlotte Littlewood one final time. Charlotte Littlewood, the problem, as I see it, is that perhaps this is not entirely a political issue. I think we need to scratch a little deeper. Can we say that Hamas was really working in any way towards a political resolution of this?
I think the answer lies in, if the political solution was solved, there would still be Islamist fundamentalists who would want to remove all Jews from the world. There would still be far-right and extreme leftist anti-Semites who see Jews as the problem of the world. I think no matter what our political solution is, Hamas would still want to eradicate all Jews. And this is a very important part to understand of what we are seeing. So you cannot remove the religious fundamentalism from the discussion. Of course, there are both things going on, but if you solve one, the other won't naturally be solved. I think also to compare the actions of Hamas and Israel to say one is doing better than the other, I'm not sure that's the argument I would go down. I think Hamas is awful and doesn't need to be compared to Israel. Israel is a democracy defending itself, and to say one is doing better than the other is almost to degrade Israel in this conversation. But I do think Israel needs to be critical about how it handles wartime situations. And I know I think it's unfair in the way the international community has handled wars against ISIS and Al-Qaeda and has not been self-critical and has not seen as much criticism as Israel is facing now. However, I believe there should have been self-criticism, and there should have been criticism levied at other Western states at those times that Israel is now facing. You could make the argument that Israel is getting an unfair amount of negative attention. That in itself could be anti-Semitic. However, I think critical assessment of war is important.
I think that point is very well made. Yes, we can't in some ways justify all the means to arrive at an end. And I think we need to be a little more discerning on that account. I leave it at this, viewers. It's an unfortunate turn of events. Let's hope that sanity prevails sooner than later.
20 levels here at Anand Vihar. Every year, this is said to be one of the hotspots of pollutions here in the national capital. One of the prime reasons when we talk about air pollution in the national capital continues to be the farm fires. But vehicular movement is also another aspect to it. You can see the kind of traffic this area cater to, and in fact not only traffic, but you can see the bus adda is also here at this very point. So there is a heavy vehicular movement of big vehicles, though an imposition has come into place where diesel buses from the adjoining states are not being allowed to enter to the national capital. Only electric, CNG and BS6 compliance diesel vehicles or buses will be allowed here in the national capital. In fact, there is a visual also coming in here how water guns and smoke guns are being continuously used to actually make a temporary solution of this entire situation. Though at this very pocket, in this very area, the AQI remains in the very, very poor category. In fact, it is going beyond that at some point in time. Yesterday was the day when 500 mark was breached here at Anand Vihar. In fact, Supreme Court is also taking up this issue of worsening air quality here in the national capital, where the Supreme Court has asked the 5 states, including national capital Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Haryana and Punjab, to file an affidavit as to what measures they are taking to combat this current situation of worsening air quality here in the national capital. Well, the people of the national capital woke up to a hazy morning for the straight 5th day. Well, the air quality was already deteriorating, but now things have gone from bad to worse. In fact, today's AQI is, as when we are recording this very report, is somewhere around 336 levels, which is in the very poor category. I'm coming to you from the Kartavya Path area. On this side, you can see how bad the situation is here in the national capital. The smog has completely shrouded this area, and India Gate from this very point is barely visible. So this is a visual evidence of how the bad situation has turned here in the national capital. On the other side of the road as well, you can see the visibility has dipped a lot. Well, now this entire matter is panning out to be worse than the last 2 to 3 years, and this is what the officials had maintained, that October was worst in the last couple of years. Now, in some pockets yesterday, the AQI in fact had reached over the 500 mark, including the Anand Vihar area. And in fact, some areas including Jahangirpuri also reported AQI levels over 400 to 500. So this is a worrisome situation now. In fact, authorities have also kicked in to actually curb this situation. As of now, various measures have been implemented. The latest which has been implemented as of now by the government is that no diesel vehicles will be allowed, or diesel buses will be allowed from the adjoining state in the national capital. If the buses are electric, if the buses are CNG, or if the buses are compliant with the BS6 norms of the diesel vehicles, then only those buses will be allowed. In fact, other measures are also in place, but as of now, the situation looks very bad here in the national capital. With national capital reeling under heavy smog, there are certain pockets which are
Namaste, Jai Hind and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narsimhan. The G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant is quite chuffed. That's because Kozhikode, of whom he is a former collector, has now been crowned as the City of Literature by UNESCO. Meanwhile, GST revenue collection for October 2023 is the second highest ever since the goods and services tax came into being. 1.72 lakh crore rupees was collected in October, which is the 13% up year-on-year increase. Yes, average gross monthly GST collection now stands at 11% higher year-on-year. Retail inflation for industrial workers is eased to 4.